Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be deciding whether or not you should be using ace grading to grade your cards in the UK, or whether you should really try and use PSA, even though there's no real way to use it in the UK other than shipping your cards over to America. I'm not including CGC or Beckett simply because I have no experience with them. I have never bought a CGC card or Beckett card, but I have some experience with PSA and a lot of experience with ace grading. So yeah, let's get into it. But before you fully get into this video, you should really know that I'm a new YouTube channel, and I don't really have that many subscribers, so you have the benefit of being one of my first ever subscribers. So please remember to like the video, comment on it, and then also, if you would like to, subscribe, because it really helps me out, especially with the algorithm. Now it's time for the video. So one of the first things that I want to go over with ace grading specifically is how much it costs to grade their cards. So I'm on their website, and if I go to submissions and I go to create new or continue, it'll take a minute to load. I have some was already set up here, so if I just hit continue, you can see that their service levels start here. You've got basic, standard, premier and ultra. Now the minimum for grading a card with ace grading is £10, and you need to send at least 5 cards, so you're going to be costing £50 to send off your cards. It'll take roughly 40 business days. I can speak from experience. A lot of the time it doesn't take 40 business days. A lot of the time it's going to be 35, or if you're lucky 30. Sometimes it can be less. You can actually almost fall into the standard bracket where you can get cards coming back within 25 days. And generally speaking, because of the way you would grade cards, going with basics the best way almost, because there's no, unless you've got a really rare card and you want it to get back immediately, there's no point in paying for ultra for £30 to get the card back within 2 days, especially if you're going to send it near a weekend, because I don't think they post on the weekends, as well as you unless you're like flipping cards, there's not really much of a point. However, let's say for example you do want it back immediately, these prices aren't actually that bad, especially the basic and the standard. They're really good. Getting your cards back in 20 days for an extra £2, halving it from £40, great. And you only have to send off 2 cards compared to 5. But generally speaking, ever since basic has had good availability, I've been using it. Now comparing this to PSA, if you go to PSA's website, you can just generally look up their cost price for what it would be. I know these are all in dollars, but we'll use this as an example. This Collectors Club exclusive at $15, it's about £11.70p. So I'll just round it up to £12. But the thing about this is, first of all, it's going to take 65 days compared to 40 to get it back to you, and that's without any delays of shipping it to America, as well as, shipping it to America is sort of a big deal. You have to package it a lot better. It's a much longer process compared to just sending it to ace grading. As well as that, to get this Collectors Club exclusive TCG bulk or value bulk at $19, you have to pay $100 to unlock it, which is kind of weird. I know PSA is like the GOAT of TCG card grading, but I don't fully understand why they would have it, especially at $100. Maybe if you put it to 25, or you made it a subscription where it was like $5 a month, where it didn't add up that crazy, or you can just buy it that 1 month that you want to send cards, that kind of deal. But if you're just comparing, if we just take TCG bulk, $15 per card plus $100 on top of that, versus £10 for basic with a minimum of 5 cards, £50 versus $115 for 1 card, if that's even the minimum submission. I feel like ace grading wins on this one. The next thing that I can move on to show off sort of why you should invest in ace grading, or why you should, Now, the next thing that I can move on to sort of show off whether ace grading's worth it or not is the prices on eBay. I'll actually just sort of show off some of these, and a 10 for £22.50 is kind of crazy. There's another one there for 30, a Ho GX card as well, and a PSA 10. I feel like that'll be a lot more. A Pikachu Crown Zenith card for £60. That Umbreon Gold Star in a 10 is £25, 20p, and that card alone just goes for £25 raw. So there's that. It's not really gaining value. So if I was to go and show you an example, I have this Rayquaza VMAX from Silver Tempest in a Gem Mint 10, selling for, well, sorry, not selling for, it's already sold for £27. The slabs look good, pretty cool card, £27. Currently, you can buy this card on Card Market for £3.84 without postage. So let's round it up to like £4.50, including postage. And then let's go back and have a look at this, £27. And then if you go to PSA 10 in this card, it jumps up to £44. So that's kind of the drawback with this grading, is that when you grade a card with them, even if it gets a 10, it doesn't really increase in value, because you have to remember this card would have been bought, let's say it was bought for £4. Screw the shipping, it was bought for £4. It was graded for £10 using basic. There's not that much of an increase, especially when eBay takes 12.8% or 13.8% of your sale, versus selling the card as a PSA 10 for £44. The other thing about that is obviously sending the card to PSA costs you a lot more in general, so it's hit and miss. With ace grading cards specifically, I like to use it for grading a lot of my cards that aren't worth a crazy amount of money. Because if you have like a rare, Charizard or something, it's just my opinion, you should probably just send it over to PSA, because the price is gonna be way higher for that card in a PSA 10 versus an ace grading 10, and that's simply because a lot of people don't know about ace grading, and they just sort of think that it's one of those pop-up companies that somebody created during the pandemic that hasn't really been selling well. But you kind of have to look at ace grading as it's sold over 100,000 grades, I guess, and they're really growing exponentially. So there's that. So if the takeaway here is ace grading is really good for money, not great if you want to gain value immediately. The card's always going to gain value, as it gets older, but if you want it to be like an immediate flip card, you should always go with PSA at the moment, simply because for the majority of the cards, ace grading isn't matching PSA 10 versus their 10s. Now, the next thing I'm going to sort of touch on is population reports. Now, with ace grading, it's actually a lot easier to get a 1 of 1 card when it comes to, 10s and even 9s, I guess, if you want to count those. So I'm just looking up Infernape here really quick, and if we go take this top one, this Infernape from 2006, and it's from the entry pack Infernape half deck. It's only got one ever graded with ace grading, and it's currently at a 5, and there's no 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. So that's something you can put towards trying to sell your card for more. The fact that there's only, one of them in a 10 in an ace grading, because there are collectors out there that will only collect ace grading cards. There's collectors out there, a lot of UK collectors currently are going for ace grading simply because it's cheap, it's really easy to send it to them, that kind of deal. So there's that. That's a really good, thing about ace grading. You can sort of get in early, because it's not going to just randomly disappear. Either they're here for the long haul, they're obviously a profitable company, because if they weren't, they wouldn't be able to keep going. The last sort of couple points as well are to do with CGC. Now, CGC has always been grading, they've graded comic books for something like 25 years. They've graded cards for slightly less. Now, if you have been sort of keeping up with the drama that's been going on, there's a bunch of YouTube videos about it. CGC cards I'll read it verbatim from this. Cards previously graded Gem-Int 9.5 are exactly equivalent to a Gem-Int 10 under the updated grading scale and will soon be reflected in the CDC card certification verification. Population report and registry resources under the Gem-Int 10 grade without any action needing to be taken by collectors and dealers. Basically, what's happening is CGC are upgrading all their 9.5s to a Gem-Mint 10, and you can actually send it in to get re-slabbed to a Gem-Mint 10, and because of that, a lot of people are a bit shaky with CGC at the moment. One of their sort of weirder moves, they're also changing how the label looks, and they're combining CGC and I think it's CGS they're called. So obviously they've got all this drama going around them. People might, stop using them for like a week or something. They might have a bit of fall in sales, something like that. And I think obviously CGC has like an insane amount of cards graded, but ace grading might honestly become more preferred than CGC at some stage, like within the next year, 2 years, 3 years. I think they can take over CGC in terms of popularity. They're never gonna hit PSA. PSA is never gonna fall. Beckett's one of those weird ones where like people only use it for like extremely expensive cards, from what I've seen. Your first edition Charizards, that kind of thing. The final points I'm going to leave you with, even though I've said final points like 3 or 4 times, is that ace grading, if you're in the UK, is much easier to send your cards to. It's much cheaper to send your cards. Like it's £10 a card at the cheapest amount, and in general, it's probably roughly around the same prices as CGC if you want to sell the cards. So I would almost look at ace grading as a UK version of CGC to some extent. That's like they're very, very, very similar in that to that extent. But yeah, if you're in the UK, but my final opinion is the majority of your Pokemon cards you should probably just send to ace grading because it's £10. If you hit a 10, you can still get decent money for them. If you're something that's crazy expensive, like a Japanese Miriam card, send it to PSA in the hopes of getting a 10, because then it's something like over £1,000, I think. And then you're Gucci. But no, that's basically the end of the video. So if you liked it, leave a like, comment. Whether you would use ace grading if you're in the UK, or if you're still in the UK, if you'd use PSA. How have you found the experience with both? And yeah, if you really want to help out the channel, you can subscribe. You can also suggest videos. I will also, I'll read every single comment, reply to every comment that I can, and I will take the video ideas on board. Thanks, guys. Catch you in the next one.